There are no other people on earth that are as spiritually free as we are.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Watchtower Examination. My name is Winston. It is so very interesting the way the videos that I'm creating are being produced and how the dots are being connected and how one video is related to another and how they relate to other videos on other channels. It is just pretty interesting, the developments, even with me standing before you doing a video outside today, unlike I've been doing in recent times. Where do I begin? How do I share with you the connection of these dots? It is just so interesting. I want to share with you. First, there is a video produced by Mike and Kim where they featured some letters, or at least one letter, that is being sent by PRENTO, as Jehovah's Witnesses are now engaged in letter writing for their witnessing because as a result of COVID, they are no longer going door to door. Pretty interesting letter I heard read. Then comes XJW Africa, who created a video commenting on a funny happening with one of these letters. Then I did a video commenting on it. Then the author of that letter contacted me, gave me a copy of the letter. Then he related a very interesting story about himself that I will be sharing with you in a bit, about why the stages that led to his final his final severing of ties with the Watchtower, how he finally disassociated. You'll be hearing about that in a bit. But it had something to do with a talk that he gave regarding homosexuality. Someone he spoke with who indicated that he would love to become a Jehovah's Witness, but he is a homosexual. I'll soon get to that. Then comes Lloyd Evans doing a video with Stephen Lett's niece. I started watching the video, but I never completed it because the very first thing that jumped out at me was so disturbing that even before I could get to Stephen Lett's niece, I had to discuss Stephen Lett's comments about children. Very disturbing comment.
Children are not born with the godly quality of love. In fact, because of imperfection, they're born with the opposite.
And so I did a video on that. So I never completed watching the video that Lloyd Evans did with Stephen Lett's niece. Then I do a video indicating that I will now be introducing a new feature, the comment of the day. Someone sends a comment encouraging me to do more videos on the outside, and so I've decided I will get back to doing videos on the outside. I'm trying to get mobile so it is more convenient so I can go on the road. So this video on the outside was not planned. If you recall, I did a video, the last video that I did on the outside, I did it on the outside because I felt that sitting inside the room dealing with this dreary subject would have depressed me. I've decided to take this one on the road because maybe if I were to shoot this from my room at the end of this video, I would need therapy. What was that about? A video. Not a video about an article. Well, the video was about an article written in an Awake magazine. I think it was 1966, where some Jehovah's Witnesses went to a convention and a son died. And the parents just went on with the convention as though nothing happened. And the children had to be subjected to listening to speeches from a convention that children, well, I didn't know how old they are, but usually no child who is dealing with bereavement wants to be listening to convention speeches when their sibling just died. But someone posted a comment that I think it's a she prefers when I do videos on the outside. Then another person commented, I'm talking now about introducing the comment of the day. And I'm reading the comments. Someone commented about Stephen Lett's nephew committing suicide. And so I decided to go back to Lloyd Evans' video, watch that video with Stephen Lett's niece. And what I have discovered have left me so down that I decided I do not want to shoot the video on the inside. And that's why I'm on the outside. It is late in the evening. The sun will soon set. I hope I can get through all of this before the sun sets. And you're going to see how all of this will tie together before the video is through. I'm going to be sharing with you a very disturbing statement that I found in a Watchtower magazine just today. But before I share that statement, allow me to play a clip that I have played so often, but I keep replaying it because every day I get new subscribers to this channel. For the sake of those who are new, this is a video clip of a recommendation that Jehovah's Witnesses are making to families.
Sonia Erickson has been disfellowshipped.
I tried to contact them. I just wanted to talk and to hear their voice. I missed being with my family. And they thought about reaching out to me. But they knew that if they had associated with me, even a little, just to check on me, that small dose of association might have satisfied me. It could have made me think that there was no need to return to Jehovah.
That is a video where the Watchtower is recommending to parents to shun their children, their family, when they are disfellowshipped. The Watchtower was to double down on it.
I kept wondering how he was doing. Was he okay? Then, as hard as the past few weeks had been, it just got harder. I knew what the Bible said about quit mixing in company with anyone who is not living according to Christian standards. But I never thought that scripture would one day apply to me.
That act is considered evil by me, by most nominal Christians. You do not know what your child is calling you about. The child could be calling you to say, I want to come back. And you refuse to take the call. This is the disturbing statement that I found in the Watchtower only today.
What a test of faith it was for Aaron and his family not to mourn their dead relatives. Are you personally proving yourself holy with regard to not associating with family members or others who have been disfellowshipped?
You're going to be seeing how all of this is being tied together. The reason I found that statement is that I'm trying to discover what is the Watchtower's belief about those who commit suicide and the resurrection. Do they believe that those who committed suicide will be resurrected? And so I was to find that the Watchtower, the buzzword in that article, in that statement, is holy. The Watchtower is describing the act of a mother refusing to take a call from her daughter, her son, as an act of holiness. I believe it is evil. The Watchtower believes it is holy. Asked about this act of holiness in a frequently asked questions, this is how the Watchtower answers the question about their holy act of shunning family members.
Do Jehovah's Witnesses shun former members of their religion? Those who were baptized as Jehovah's Witnesses but no longer preach to others, perhaps even drifting away from association with fellow believers, are not shunned.
The Watchtower is trying to give the impression that where the persons voluntarily leave, they are no longer active, they are not shunned. That is not true. Persons who disassociate themselves are shunned. I suppose they will get technical to say, we are not speaking about people who give us formal letters of disassociation. We're speaking of persons who are just inactive. They will try to do that. But the article continues.
What of a man who is disfellowshipped, but whose wife and children are still Jehovah's Witnesses? The religious ties he had with his family change, but blood ties remain. The marriage relationship and normal family affections and dealings continue.
So now the organization tries to play smart by dealing with a husband who is disfellowshipped. Because the truth is, as long as they remain married and remain in the same household, no shunning will go on. But what if they separate? What if the man leaves the home? Do normal family ties and relations remain? No. The children are being told to prove themselves holy by not speaking with their father. Prove yourselves holy by not associating with disfellowshipped family. Sorry about that, I forgot to put the phone on Do Not Disturb. Where was I? Yes, if the man separates from the home, the children are told to prove themselves holy. Holy, ladies and gentlemen, this is holiness among Jehovah's Witnesses. Prove yourself holy by not speaking with your father. But they would try to give the impression in this question and answer at their website as though they do not do this thing. If it is so holy, why don't you just promote the holiness of it when someone asks a question?
Are you personally proving yourself holy with regard to not associating with family members or others who have been disfellowshipped?
Having read the comment about Stephen Lett's niece, I went back to the video, and I hope that Evans will not mind me playing this clip from his video. I could tell you about it, but if you have not seen it yourself, I think it is best that you hear it from the horse's mouth. Before I give you the clip, here is Stephen Lett speaking late 2020 or mid 2020.
There will be many others who will come back who will have to abandon their former way of life. I was thinking, as an example, a homosexual. Now, this former homosexual comes back in the resurrection, and he really thought, and he was taught, and he came to believe that God accepted him with that lifestyle. But now he's going to learn about Jehovah's moral standards. And he's going to learn that Jehovah will not lower his standard to accommodate us. We have to come up to Jehovah's standard.
So, in your own words, how would you describe that story?
His convention part of the 2020 convention is actually what spurred me on to reach out to you, because it was very upsetting for me. Because, so I have an 8-year younger brother. His name is Stephen as well. So that may be a little confusing in telling this story. But my brother, January of 2020, committed suicide because he was gay and had been disfellowshipped about 9-10 years ago and shunned from all the family. So those words that he spoke at the convention very much upset me. And so
I can imagine, yeah.
I waited a couple of months before I reached out to you on that, after that was released.
No, that is such a mess. His family were encouraged to prove themselves holy by not having any contact with that relative because he's homosexual, because he is disfellowshipped for homosexuality. He commits suicide. I wanted to find out, what is the Watchtower's position on those who commit suicide and the resurrection? Because if this young man is resurrected in paradise, how will the family maintain their holiness in paradise and speak with him as Stephen Lett is now suggesting? But because I wanted to find out first if he will be resurrected, I did a little digging and I found this very interesting, very disturbing article. This entire thing is such a mess.
Young people ask, what if my sibling has committed suicide? Karen's life changed the day her father broke the news. Sheila's gone, was all he could say. Karen and her dad fell into each other's arms, both trying to make sense out of an utterly senseless act. Karen's sister had taken her own life. When a young person dies, well-meaning comforters often focus attention on the parents. They ask the brothers or sisters of the deceased, "How are your dad and mom coping?" But they might forget to ask, "How are you coping?" It's for good reason, then, that surviving siblings have been called forgotten mourners. Research shows that the death of a sibling has a profound impact on young ones. Such a major loss adversely affects surviving children's health, behavior, schoolwork, self-esteem, and development, writes Dr. P. Gill White in her book Sibling Grief: Healing After the Death of a Sister or Brother.
Yet, the Watchtower proudly writes an article about siblings who remained at a convention to listen to convention speeches when they just lost their sibling. This is probably the most disturbing statement in that article, as was mentioned in the video that I did commenting on it. I give you a clip from that video. Can you imagine the impression we would have made if we had turned around and gone home? No, that is one hell of an important question. I'm asking that question too. Can you imagine if they had been so thoughtless and gone home just because their son died? Can you imagine the negative effect it would have had on the event if they had gone home? Can you imagine how selfish they would have been to be thinking about their family just because their son died? Can you imagine? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of Tales from the Crypt, because this is too surreal. Can you imagine if they had gone home? Why then would that lady believe that had the family gone home, it would have negatively affected the convention, as though it would have it is demonstrating a lack of faith, when the Watchtower knows the devastating effect that the death of a sibling has on children? Back to the article about suicide.
Older youths are affected too. Karen, mentioned previously, was 22 years old when Sheila, her younger sister, took her life. Nevertheless, at times her grief seemed unbearable. I can't claim that I suffered more than my parents, she says, but I think I was less able to deal with the suffering than they were. Have you, like Karen, lost a sibling in death? If so, you may feel as did the psalmist David, who wrote, "I have become disconcerted. I have bowed low to an extreme degree. All day long I have walked about sad." Psalm 38:6. How can you cope with your grief? If only. The suicide of a brother or sister can leave you racked with guilt. If only I had done things differently, my sibling would still be alive, you might tell yourself. It may seem that there's evidence to support that thought. Chris, who was 21 when his 18-year-old brother took his life, believed that. I was the last person to speak to my brother, he says, so I thought that I should have known that something was up.
If Chris could feel so guilty because he was the last one to speak Jehovah's Witnesses, the last one to speak with his brother who died, he might have observed something. How much worse is it going to be for Chris, Jehovah's Witnesses? For Chris to think that if only I had spoken with him. Do you see something wrong here, Jehovah's Witnesses? How do you feel when your sibling has died and it is I am feeling almost as if maybe I should not be doing this video. Because I am feeling for Stephen Lett's niece, hoping that she doesn't see this video. Because what must it be like for the family when they remember that they did not speak with this brother before he committed suicide? Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, it is because you did not speak with him why he took his life. It is because of your holiness, Jehovah's Witnesses, that your siblings, your relatives would take their own life. What does that tell you, dear Watchtower members, about your brand of holiness? Is that what being holy, is that the effect of your being holy? How can you see holiness in this, Jehovah's Witnesses? This is diabolical. It is evil. It would lead a sibling to take his own life. And if what has been read so far is not disturbing enough, it gets worse.
I reasoned that if only I had been more approachable, he might have opened up and talked to me.
Ah, boy. Are you listening, Jehovah's Witnesses? Chris is saying if only he had been more Chris speaks with his brother. He was the last one to speak with him, but he is feeling guilty. Because had he been more approachable, had he made himself available for his brother to speak with him about what he was going through, he probably would not have taken his life. How about you? Had that relative been able to say hi to you, hello, not just to tell you about what he's going through. If only he could only greet you and have you greet him, but you are too holy for him to greet you. You are too holy to greet him.
Are you personally proving yourself holy with regard to not associating with family members or others who have been disfellowshipped?
And it gets worse.
The despair Chris felt was intensified by the fact that he and his brother had had a strained relationship.
How distressed do you feel when you and your relative have a strained relationship, not because you believe that you are too holy to speak with him? Please, I am not speaking to Stephen Lett's niece. I am addressing Jehovah's Witnesses in general who shun their relatives, leading them to commit suicide. And to Jehovah's Witnesses whose relatives have not yet committed suicide, I am hoping that by producing this video I can save one life. I am hoping you can come to your senses and save your relatives' lives. You believe that what the Watchtower is telling you, that it is holiness, that it is God who designed it. I have done, because I'm on location, no, I'm not even remembering I've placed a card and I've placed a link in the description where I respond to the biblical arguments that you put forward. The Watchtower is twisting the scriptures to make evil look good. Can you see the evil? Can you see it now? The article continues.
The note he left said that I could have been a better brother, Chris recalls with great pain. Even though I know he wasn't well, that thought continues to plague me. Often, such guilt is further fueled by memories of bitter words that were exchanged with a sibling before he or she died. Many bereaved siblings have told me that the guilt they feel over a fight they had months or even years ago continues to torment them, Dr. White, quoted earlier, told Awake. If you suffer from guilt over a sibling's suicide, ask yourself this: what human is granted full control over the actions of another human? Says Karen, the suffering that the person was trying to escape and the horrible way that he or she ended it were not yours to prevent.
The Watchtower is telling you the opposite of what I just opined. That you can prevent the suicide of a relative. You can prevent a relative of yours committing suicide by speaking with him or her. So a relative commits suicide because you are shunning them. The Watchtower tells you, never mind, don't feel guilty. You could not have prevented it. Allow me to go back to something that was said at the beginning of this article.
Karen and her dad fell into each other's arms, both trying to make sense out of an utterly senseless act.
So do not feel any guilt when your shunning causes a relative to commit suicide. That is, you couldn't have prevented it. You could not have prevented it. This is just a matter of the person being senseless. First he was a sinner. First he chose a wrong path, and then he just chose the senseless act of killing himself. Silly him. Don't feel guilty. Is that the message that the Watchtower is sending to Jehovah's Witnesses, who in the first place should have considered their relative dead anyway?
My family missed me so much, even after all I had done. What helped them to remain loyal to Jehovah for the many years I was disfellowshipped? It was the Bible account of Aaron. Jehovah directly judged 2 of Aaron's sons and put them to death. In this case, Jehovah asked Aaron and his family not to mourn.
To comfort Jehovah's Witnesses when they are shunning their relatives. They point Jehovah's Witnesses to Aaron's sons. God executed judgment on Aaron's son. The righteous judge, God, judged them. The Watchtower is equating that with a bunch of elders passing judgment on someone and excommunicating them. Treat them as though they were dead. Don't mourn them. And if they were to go all the way and commit the senseless act of suicide, just remember that you couldn't have prevented it. That was not yours to prevent, says this evil organization.
But what if you cannot seem to forget insensitive or harsh remarks you once made to your sibling? The Bible can help you to put things in perspective. It states, "We all stumble many times. If anyone does not stumble in word, this one is a perfect man." James 3:2. Really, dwelling on incidents in which you feel you spoke to or treated your sibling harshly will only intensify your grief. Painful as those memories may be, the fact remains that you did not cause your sibling to die.
The sun is setting and it's going to get dark, but I want to finish this video right here. So bear with me, please. I'm going to be fair with the Watchtower. The Watchtower is here looking on someone who lost a relative, not through shunning, a relative that they had a relationship with. And they are feeling bad because they treated that relative harshly before the suicide. They're saying, don't feel guilty about it. Don't dwell on it. Forgive yourself. Nobody is perfect. We all do things. All right? But it can also be applied to the person who committed suicide because you are shunning him. Don't feel guilty about it. We're only human. We all make mistakes. This is not a mistake. This is not a mistake that you made. This is something that you were taught to do and labeled as holiness. How are you going to apply that thing about we all make mistakes to that when it was not a mistake on your part? It was a deliberate thing that you did. Allow me to play a clip from the Sonia Erickson video.
I was disfellowshipped for more than 15 years.
She was disfellowshipped for more than 15 years. How do you as a sibling not talk to your sister for 15 years and then try to take solace in that scripture? It was not a mistake. You deliberately did that consistently for more than 15 long years. That text will not be able to help you.
My brother, January of 2020, committed suicide because he was gay and had been disfellowshipped about 9-10 years ago.
Stop the evil. That is what will be able to help you. Right now, Jehovah's Witnesses, you have a relative, if you are shunning, who could shock you with the news that they committed suicide because you are shunning them, and you will not be able to find solace in the scriptures as the Watchtower is here recommending, because what you are doing is not holy.
Coping with grief. No two people grieve in precisely the same way. Some shed tears openly, and there's nothing wrong with that. The Bible reports that David wept with a very great weeping after the death of his son Amnon. 2 Samuel 13:36. Even Jesus gave way to tears when he saw the distress caused by the death of his friend Lazarus.
And I'm going to end my commentary here by going back to Stephen Lett and his niece.
His convention part of the 2020 convention is actually what spurred me on to reach out to you, because it was very upsetting for me.
She could not handle the grief when she saw the insensitivity of her uncle. His nephew died in January, committing suicide because he was being shunned, because he was homosexual. Ladies and gentlemen, could Stephen Lett not have found another example to speak about? Ladies and gentlemen, if it were a script that Stephen Lett was given, couldn't he have asked that the script be edited? Couldn't he have asked, tell you what, my nephew who was a homosexual committed suicide at the beginning of the year. It is a sensitive issue for me. How about you have Jeffrey Jackson handle this section and let me do the other section? How could Stephen Lett be so insensitive? Is it that the death of his nephew was not long enough, was long enough in the past that it is forgotten? And so he can just speak openly about it at a convention? These men, have you ever, maybe you believe, have you observed how I will stutter sometimes and correct myself sometimes in the middle of a presentation, but these men just flow? They hardly ever stutter. Let me tell you what the secret is. Teleprompter. They are reading from a teleprompter. They are reading a prepared speech. It is scripted. And apart from the insensitivity, the thing is such a mess. Because this is one other statement from the article that is quite relevant. Watchtower doctrines are so messy.
The hour is coming in which all those in the memorial tombs will hear his, Jesus, voice and come out. John 5:28 and 29.
I hinted at it before, but I want to revisit it and ask Jehovah's Witnesses to think now. You are shunning your relative because he's homosexual and he dies. How do you entertain the hope of a resurrection? Is he going to be comfortable when he is resurrected to have you speak with him now? You could not speak with him before he committed suicide. But you are going to speak with him now, and how are you going to feel approaching him now? To speak with him now about changing his ways. Is this not a rerun of the reason he committed suicide?
But now he's going to learn about Jehovah's moral standards. And he's going to learn that Jehovah will not lower his standard to accommodate us. We have to come up to Jehovah's standard. Will he change? Will he adjust? It'll be up to him. But you, brothers and sisters, will help such ones to enjoy life eternal. All must learn to walk in Jehovah's righteous ways and willingly choose to do so. But now, what if someone refuses to make the necessary changes? Well, the Watchtower commented on that It said after being given ample time, maybe even 100 years, to seek God, some will show that they refuse to practice righteousness. Justly, they will lose life in the new world, as we can see from Isaiah 65, verse 12, which says, "And the sinner will be cursed, even though he is 100 years of age."
How is it that you must prove yourself holy by not speaking with him in this life, but you're going to speak with him in paradise? Do you see the mess of your doctrines, Jehovah's Witnesses? But there's another bit of mess about the doctrine too. Because Jehovah's Witnesses, the Christians teach about two classes, the righteous and the unrighteous. The Jehovah's Witnesses have three classes. They have the unrighteous. Let me begin with, they have first the righteous, second the unrighteous, and third the wicked. The wicked. The wicked are those who met Jehovah and resisted his way. So they will tell you then that this brother is not going to be resurrected during the millennium because he was wicked. Because it is the unrighteous, those who have not gotten a chance to know Jehovah, who will be getting the second chance. But let me show you how messy the Watchtower's doctrines are. The Watchtower also teaches that when you die, you are acquitted of your sins. So how can you now put this brother in the unrighteous when by virtue of dying he is acquitted of his sins? So he has no sin anymore. He is no more wicked. So which group is he going to be ultimately in? The unrighteous or the wicked? But why would the wicked not be resurrected if they were acquitted of their guilt, their sin, when they die? Ladies and gentlemen, to tie the final knot together, apart from the insensitivity of what is going on here, I want to show you how the mess of Watchtower doctrines is all coming out, and how a section of the dot that I mentioned at the beginning is about to be connected. The author of the letter that was sent to me, that was sent to people about the Jehovah's Witnesses, related to me. I am hoping to get back to him and to see if we can, to see how much more I can share. But I'll share this much because he remains anonymous. He did a speech, he did a talk in a Kingdom Hall where he mentioned that a homosexual said to him that he would love to become a Jehovah's Witness, but he is homosexual. The gentleman said to the person, you would be surprised that there are Jehovah's Witnesses who are homosexuals, who remain with us. He was saying this based on Watchtower theology. This Watchtower theology is found in this statement in a 1983 Watchtower magazine.
It is interesting that, according to dictionary definitions, Homosexuality includes sexual desire for others of one's own sex. Yet the Bible makes a distinction between the practice of what is bad and sinful desires or tendencies. These desires may be present, despite determined efforts to eradicate them from mind and body. Because of their earlier life environment, and perhaps other factors, we may have Christian brothers and sisters, who, from time to time, have the urge for sexual relations with members of their own sex. But they fight that unnatural, Satan-inspired desire, and they do not give in to it. So, they are not practicing homosexuals. They get control of their thinking, knowing that wrong desire, that is allowed to grow fertile, is bound to express itself in wrong acts.
No, that makes sense. I am heterosexual. I have sexual desires, but I control my desires. That's what I had to do before I got married, as a Christian for several years. But I was accepted in the church in spite of my desires. I was not disfellowshipped or disciplined because I was not a practicing heterosexual. I had the desire, I had the temptations, but I was not giving in to the temptations. By the same token, the Watchtower would be correct that someone who is homosexual but who is not giving in to the desires, so there is no need to disfellowship the person. So someone then with homosexual tendencies can be accepted in the church. But the odd thing, ladies and gentlemen, which was why this gentleman eventually disassociated from the organization, he makes this presentation in a talk, and he was raked over the coals for it. He should never have said that. He was written to about making the statement, ladies and gentlemen, have you seen the mess? The man is being reprimanded for stating Watchtower doctrine in a Watchtower talk in a Kingdom Hall. Is this the Twilight Zone? How insane is this religion? How messy is this religion? How blasphemous is this religion to say that they are directed, to imply, because the statement is true that they are spirit directed if you ask yourself the question, which spirit? But how blasphemous of this organization to claim, to imply that they are being directed by Jehovah's organization and would dare to call their evil holy. Thanks for watching this video. It is my prayer that one Jehovah's Witness who is shunning a relative will see through this mess how wrong it is and change. It is my prayer.
May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.